Just click that, that light, the green light.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back from your lunch break. We just wanted to be here to introduce our next two speakers. We have Tyler Tuccio and we have Jaclyn Norton, and we're going to get off screen and we're going to let them get started.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming and welcome to our workshop, which is titled Your Role in Trans Inclusivity. I am one of your keynote speakers. My name is Tyler Tuccio, aka T Sparks. I am your current Mr. Trans Rhode Island, USA 2020, formerly known as your Mr. Boston Pride 2017. And also trans advocate, which I've been doing for about 20 years now. I will admit, I'm pretty shaky doing this whole mic thing right now. So what I'm going to do is be a gentleman and hand this to Jaclyn.
Thank you for that, Tyler. So I'm Jaclyn Norton, and I currently am a database editor at the Social Law Library and a development associate at GSA Link Incorporated, based out of the Worcester area in Massachusetts, which focuses on connecting LGBTQ youth with each other and with mentors. Starting out, we have a couple of disclaimers that we want to start off with. The first is we know that discussions around topics of trans inclusivity can get heated at times, and we are both very passionate on this. So we want to provide that disclaimer, as well as a disclaimer about how all statements made here are our own and are not affiliated or the views of any organization that we work for or are affiliated with. As well as you can, we have had some recent changes in the nature of this workshop due to recent events such as anti-trans legislation that has passed in the state of Arkansas. And because we want you guys to respond within the chat, we are going to set up a couple of community guidelines for this. Our community guidelines are respecting the various viewpoints of all individuals in the chat or speaking, as well as questions are welcome to promote learning amongst all individuals here. So Tyler's going to ask a question for you guys to respond that will give you a couple minutes to respond to in the chat. Tyler, do you want to take that away?
So what we want to ask you guys, all of you right now, is what do you want to get out of this workshop? When you saw that this was available to come and involve yourself in, what would you like to get out of this? So now we're going to give you all a few minutes to kind of think about it and throw in some responses so that maybe we can put all this down and
we can make sure that we hit upon everything that you guys are looking to get out of it throughout the course of this workshop.
No. I can't.
or you guys to be inclusive of all?
Thank
That, or could you consider?
Thank you so much for that feedback, and we will definitely make sure to use inclusive language in the rest of this workshop. So I am going to go off. I'm going to begin with my experiences with Pride and what I have experienced, justifying how we need to have more trans inclusivity with Pride. So growing up, Pride was always something that was a dream to witness one day. An event where there were LGBTQ people like myself in one place, to numbers that I could not even fathom growing up in rural Ohio. Once going to my first Pride, I saw that, but I also eventually saw the ways in which Pride was leaving behind many groups of people from all various backgrounds. And in seeing this, it makes me want to fight for including trans individuals in Pride in as many ways as possible, as if we are leaving members of our community behind, then we're only as strong as our weakest link. So I'm going to pass it on to Tyler to talk about his experiences with Pride.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So my experience with Pride, I feel I've had a very long history with Pride. I am a 36-year-old open transgender masculine man, so I live openly. And the reason why I live openly now is because of how Pride was for me when I came out at 11 and was able to be in a group that had a youth Pride organization that helped guide me. I wasn't necessarily who I am where I beautifully am right now, but I was on a journey where that youth Pride led me somewhere. When that guide was getting ready to kind of hand me off, and as I became more of an advocate, Pride was there, still guiding me. But I never saw all the angles of Pride. I only saw certain parts because I was not shown or aware of certain parts, like transgender. So I didn't know I was transgender until someone from a youth Pride organization had to put me in front of it, kind of lead me to a conference and make me go to some workshops that were not pertaining to being a lesbian at the time I identified as. It was all transgender, which where I was at the time, our area where I lived at the time was Boston, did not talk about transgender awareness. So I noticed as growing into Pride, I didn't see all the shades of it all. So the you'll see that I have I've put down that I won a few amount of titles to gain platforms, not because of the competition or pageant. It's for the purpose, not for the look. It's for the meaning. I did it to become some sort of visual you could see where Pride would take me in and see that we need to start talking about certain things that are more than just what we see, right? So my beautiful view of Pride was beautiful until I saw the other side. And I would say that where I stand now, because I don't want to get really into it, I just see how I feel as I talk into this wave, how I actually feel of talking to it, because you saw how happy I was, how they really helped me. But then once I won my title and I saw the other side and I saw the misrepresentation of the transgender community in a way, which I'm not going to say things are different now. It was 5 years ago. Things are changing. I'm not saying anything's better. Things are changing for better. But it changed a lot, where it is necessary now, where we need to speak about how we can be more inclusive, how Pride can be more inclusive with the entire transgender community and the entire umbrella. That's not just transgender. That is everything under that umbrella. So I would say every single non-conforming, non-binary, any other title for that, they, them, and all of them. So I would say that's where my energy is with Pride and how I'm feeling with Pride. So there you go.
Definitely. And as you see, we have had very different experiences, but they both come together at a point on wanting to make Pride better for trans individuals. We have seen where Pride has had shortcomings through our various experiences, but we believe that as an organization, Pride can reform to be more inclusive of transgender individuals. As Tyler had previously mentioned, he is a drag king who is transgender. We actually met each other through both being drag performers. And the power of drag allowed us to bring these different experiences together in a way that is so powerful, in that we were able to find someone of a similar identity, but with vastly different life experiences, where we complement each other in those various ways.
If it wasn't for so like I said, I started working with Pride organizations in the youth, and as a youth, and I mean youth, so 12, 13, 14, 15, and drag through Pride helped my identity be more comfortable for me and me to accept myself. Where, as I see, and I said, drag is now, I show my inclusiveness and my trans advocacy through my drag. And by as powerful as how I was doing it, I was invited to continue to go to an amazing event where I was introduced to another amazing person who was similar to me that I had no idea was there. And through that all is what got us, I feel like, what got us together. So there's goods of what Pride had put in to that, I feel. There you go. So just saying that. I had to say that.
And so, talking about all the goods, I think good things that Pride has done and allowed for us to be ourselves and everything, I feel like it would be good to talk about some more of the specifics on where we have viewed that Pride has fallen short. And Tyler, if you want to talk about some of those ways in which Pride has fallen short on being trans inclusive.
Really. So, how I feel that. So I've been to, I have personally attended very many different festivals all throughout of, I would say, the East Coast. I'm not very familiar with the West or the Central, but more of the East Coast. And I've seen a lot of different Pride festivals and what they have to offer every individual who attends. And, you know, there are a lot of ways that can help be more inclusive by adding in more vendors and more vendors. And I would say people invited to be a part of the event that is more trans awareness and educational, or in any way to help with trans awareness and advocacy. It's very hard to find. It was very hard to find. I would say in the past couple of years, you do see more trans inclusiveness with T-shirts and stuff sold, right? But when you go to the equality tent, you still don't see a trans symbol. Just going to point that out. It's something you see, and I pointed it out. I point it out every time I go. It's something that always comes out of my mouth. So a lot of people know that this is something that I point out. Sorry. So what I feel Pride could do more, which is listen to how just having an extra space that is complete, either inviting more trans inclusiveness with educational stuff, whether it's like,
with having community organizations, or even
fundraising, like having, if you don't have enough food vendors, this is what we were talking about. If you don't have enough food vendors, but you have the money to get the space, Pride, use your money, get your own food truck, rent it out, use that time to find an organization that's needed right now. What did Jaclyn mentioned earlier in the disclaimer, that this was changing because our workshop was changing because of what is happening right now. My mind is a little disturbed at the moment because we just lost to the first state in Arkansas to banning transgender youth rights. My mind is in a different place right now to talk to you about how to be more inclusive. What we can do right now is donate some of our money, get some vendors out there, find a local food shop or clothing store. And
yes, so mainly when we're talking about vendors for Pride, and as well as being trans inclusive, we also are looking at supporting local businesses within that, as that can be a very powerful thing, as every Pride organization represented within our region serves a diverse and different group of people. And by having vendors that support the community, it is allowing Pride organizations to reinvest into the individuals in which they serve. Another topic that we had talked about when talking about promoting trans inclusivity with Pride was the higher levels of alcohol abuse that happen among the LGBTQ community, and the prevalence of alcohol vendors at Pride. And we're not saying that Pride has to be a completely dry space, but it's finding a way to make Pride accessible for all individuals and make all individuals feel welcome. Going off of making individuals feeling welcome, we have also just talked about how, as we have witnessed with Pride, there are many separate events that are based along lines of identity groups, and that we see as ways that end up dividing the community instead of bringing us together. It is good to have events catered towards more marginalized individuals within the LGBTQ community, but making all events inclusive for everyone is of the utmost importance. As I previously said, we are only as strong as our weakest link. And if we leave any part of the LGBTQ community behind, it will have drastic and disastrous impacts on the LGBTQ community as a whole. Prior to this talk, we went and documented down all the anti-LGBTQ bills in the entire country that have been proposed as of January 1st, 2021, as well as the pro-LGBTQ bills that have been introduced since 2021. We have found that 129 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced throughout the country, and 31 pro-LGBTQ bills have been introduced across the country. Leading the number of anti-LGBTQ bills is Arkansas with 12. This just underscores the need for Pride to be more inclusive. We are talking about trans inclusivity as that is our personal story and what we can speak to the best. But we cannot stop at being inclusive with trans individuals. We need to be inclusive of all individuals, no matter who they are, how they identify, who they love, so that we can come together and be a community.
I agree that if we continue to separate our groups within our community because it is ours together, it's not. I just think that having one unite is stronger together is how I always look at it, you know. So I mean, that's how I look at it. That's my explanation. Is we're stronger together.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just, yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay, Tyler.
I just so as what I was trying to say in the whole stronger together. I'm gonna put this out here of what one thing you could do to help more inclusive is. Right now, I know that we're in a certain area of the country that we're focusing on here, but what we can do is see the other areas of other pride areas that are very much in need of our help with helping these bills that Jaclyn just explained to you, which hearing that, honestly, hearing her explain that triggered me, because I am a trans person that could be affected to any of those bills that pass because I'm trans. And some of these could be affected to Jaclyn just because of our age difference in some of these states, correct? Being a youth, in different states. Wait, explain the youth, the different states.
So these bills, they have various effects ranging from religious exemptions in adoption, healthcare, and other areas to banning providing transition-related care to transgender minors. When looking at the bills, we found that 8 of the anti-trans bills have been introduced in the states represented by the Northeast Regional Pride Committee, and showcasing that there are 8 bills already within our region shows that it is not near the most, but there's work to be done here, as well as we can help our pride family to help each other and lift each other up. As if we don't help the other regions out in combating these bills and being more trans inclusive, then what's the point of us having this conference and this discussion?
If we don't focus on the other, if we don't focus on what we're not supposed to be talking about, like right now, we want to talk about how Pride can be more inclusive. If I talked about that, there would be no way of helping what we need to help. So my view is we need to focus on what we can do as a group to help our entire Pride. Everybody who enters where we have people from all over the country that come to our individual Prides. We want to make sure that those people are safe everywhere they go, right? So right now, our area there are 8, right, in ours. But then you heard alone, there's 12 just in Arkansas. 2 haven't 2 passed in Arkansas?
2 have passed.
And it was very hard for me to see because one happens to do with the bathroom, correct?
Yes.
The bathroom, again, okay? It's happening, which means if it's passing and other people start to see that it passes and other people believe that it can continue, it will, if they have enough people make enough unnecessary noise. what we have to do is do the same for our brother and sister areas. So as a whole of the Northeastern Regional, we need to look at the other areas that need our help. Focus on our area, but also really also know that we need to reach out and help our others that help us too, because they help us as well.
And going off of that and the story that we have told on our experiences with Pride and how we see how Pride can reform to be more inclusive of trans individuals as well as the entire LGBTQ community, we, as Tracy has already done in the chat, we want to hear ways in which you have or are looking or think that you can be more inclusive personally as well as a Pride organization. So we'll give you a few minutes to respond in the chat and we'll get back to you and it'll be real good and we'll have a lively discussion. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you for waiting patiently.
Yes. Thank you so much for waiting patiently. We are just making sure that all of your wonderful responses that have been made within the chat, that we had looked them over and made sure that we are able to hit on them with the remainder of our time. We have Kristen who's going to tell us about some of your questions that have been brought in, that have been put into the chat, and so that we can hopefully answer them and make sure that everyone gets the most out of this discussion as possible. So if you think of any questions as we're going for the rest of this time, feel free to put them in the chat and we will make sure to get to as many of them as possible. So Kristen, she is off camera. If you want to say our first question.
How do you identify trans culture?
Okay. So just to repeat that question, it was how do we identify trans culture? Tyler, would you like to start or would you like me to? Okay. So I will start on that one. So personally, I would define trans culture as any community activity that involves trans people. As trans people come in all shapes, sizes, backgrounds, life experience, and trans culture cannot be boiled down to a few specific things, but rather it is the collective experience of all trans individuals as a community around the entire world. Tyler? Do you have anything you would like to add to that?
I think that you just answered everything all in one. It was right there, straight shot.
Well,
it
there
would
we
be
go.
very it would be very, I would say almost about the same thing, not verbatim though.
Okay. And Kristen, what is the next question?
How has drag culture changed in the wake of the trans renaissance?
Okay. So to repeat that question, it was how has drag changed in response to the trans renaissance? So I can go off of that first. The main thing that I have seen change that, for reference, I started doing drag in 2014. And through the entire trans renaissance and the increased visibility in trans people in the last decade, it showed me that doing drag and being trans is possible. And by allowing those to be possible, it allows me to showcase to individuals when I perform that you can be trans and also be a drag performer, as those two are not one. But for instance, like, trans is who I am, drag is what I do. And I can say with doing shows and stuff, being trans and working as a drag performer, it has, in a way, held me to a higher level of duty and responsibility, as it makes me want to make sure that there is a trans voice in those rooms and discussions where decisions are being made about drag, or just discussions in general about drag, as the trans experience can put a lens on drag that is different than someone who is non-transgender. Tyler, if you'd want to speak to your experience on how coming out as trans changed your perception of drag.
So we gotta see that things are a little bit different coming to experience with how drag was when I started. So I'm coming on 17 years of performing as a drag king. So when I started, I was a female impersonating a male, what a drag king was. I painted my beard on. I learned what drag was. My drag name was Tyler. Dang. So like, and I continued doing it, and it was very powerful. I saw how powerful being a drag king at 14, 15, 16, and 17 in Boston was, because there was none. There was a lot of attention. There was a lot of love and acceptance. It was the only time I felt okay, like happy as can be, but only as Tyler at these events. Then I realized I was trans. And then there were a lot of other people in our area that went through the same thing, where I stopped because I didn't know what to do, because it was very much judged. They continued, and I kept going out and I kept watching. And I was like, wait, I don't get it. I was confused too at first. I didn't realize that there was the option of, I don't care what you think. I'm still a drag king, even if I transition. I just gotta up my impersonation game and how I perceive it. And what do you do with it once you have that, if they continue to look at you the way I had a platform that I gave up because I was scared, because I transitioned, thinking that people would mistaken, like Jaclyn said, transgender is what I am and drag is what I do. Before, it wasn't that. People just didn't get it. And I remember 17 years ago, it's very different. And I'm so happy to see where it is now, because if it wasn't where it is now, I wouldn't have met Jaclyn. Honestly, I feel like I wouldn't be here right now. By using my identity as a open trans male, my identity as a performer, which we have a bunch of groups. I personally have to write because we accept all in our drag king groups. Doesn't matter. I identify as an open trans male, trans masculine drag king performer. So people know that T Sparks is my drag name and Tyler is my name. People get that mixed up. Some places will say, and Tyler, and I'm like, that's my name. So I've seen through that how continue by using my confidence in drag has just done so much, where I'm seeing that I can sit back now because there's not just me in there. I got someone's attention that saw that there was someone else, and then I saw this one, and now it's like I don't have to be there because there's someone there. Representation, boom. And that's what drag did for me. And I will always be a drag king, no matter how trans I am.
And going back to the trans renaissance, I have the trans renaissance to thank for being able to come out as transgender. As the trans renaissance, for instance, seeing Laverne Cox on the cover of Time magazine showed me that I could be a trans person and successful, and seeing Dana Carroam and the many other trans individuals around this country that have been holding elected office showed me that I can be trans and involved with politics in a multitude of ways. The trans renaissance is an important thing and has had such a profound impact on trans individuals, I foresee not only for my generation, but generations to come. As having this increased visibility for trans people is amazing, and it is something that is so precious and so good that we need to protect it and help foster it at all cost. As having more trans people visible, it showcases to more individuals who felt the same way that the both of us did prior to transitioning, that it is possible to be trans and succeed in life.
You can live a normal life and be transgender. It's not what everybody seems to portray, that we're something different. We're just like you would. Let's just say this: if I'm walking down the street and someone who was anti, trans, and I talk to them, you probably would never know unless I told them, right?
Yeah,
and just being and having it. I'm sorry, just it's amazing to see how much more we have out there. Like you said with Laverne, I've seen a few. I feel like the trans, especially the trans women, I've just seen a wave of more out there. We see trans men. I'm hoping to see more, hence why I'm here.
Exactly. And Tracy, thank you so much for stating how your organization has started trans and non-binary support groups, and you've assisted with a group to reach out to ages 12 plus and having trans entertainers. That is exactly what we want in having trans people visible as much as possible so that their voices are heard. As if you're not at the table speaking, you're on the table. And having those changes within an organization, it will have profound effects and showcase to those youth that being trans is okay, and you can live a normal life, however that looks for you, be successful and achieve whatever dreams you have in life. And that all can be done through pride and the profound impact that pride can have on individuals of all identities. The experiences that we have had as trans individuals, I, for one, do not see as, in relation to Pride, as exclusive to trans individuals, as many individuals have been excluded by Pride organizations in the past, and there have been calls from community actors in various communities to reform these organizations. And by reforming these organizations, it allows for them to provide that representation to kids, even if it is those kids or even adults that have not realized their identity, or that their feelings of for gender exploration or many and other stuff are valid, and that there are others that have had those feelings or currently have those feelings. And seeing that representation through Pride
Is a big deal.
is such a big deal to so many people.
I'm sorry, just to add in, just like as observing as somebody who I'll walk through the event regularly by myself every Friday, just to observe the people, the families, and such. And just Pride alone captures literally the eyes of people who just walk by that don't even realize what's going on. And you have no idea that each vendor, each person, every person that's there will change somebody's view, life, opinion, in any, or just educating in any way. And even if it's like, you know, because there have been certain Pride events where I've seen, you know, complications with vendors with, you know, certain feelings or whatever, and not having
There's been complications.
And what that did was drive away a good amount of people that wanted to be there because they didn't want it there, or people didn't understand why they wanted it there. There's a whole chunk of people who really wanted to be there, that supports, that have voices that will help everybody, that wants to be there together. But then we just said, you know, we need more, I think, representation, having parents and family involved, not just individual stuff, like you know, organizations that with like not just PFLAG, you know, other nonprofits that we don't know about that have our support groups for parents of transgender youth. We're educating parents who are new to transgender youth so that they can support their kids. I don't see a lot of that, you know. So having something like that, just even if it's a small group, it really will change at least 4 to 5 to 10 people, and then that will change. And then, so what if it starts off slow? The point is, it will. If you have it there, it will do something, but you need it there.
Definitely. And what Tyler's saying, with people even just walking past and observing Pride, or in a personal narrative that with my family, even seeing Pride being talked about on TV and having that representation, it helped change their views of transgender individuals, and see through Pride that these people are normal, and that they did not have to be scared of their child coming out as transgender and transitioning. I know that is not a universal story to everyone within the LGBTQ community, but that impact of Pride on her, and seeing that it was okay for her child to be trans and live a normal and life where they can achieve their dreams if they want to, it has had impacts on her in her own rural community, where she has shared her story of how her viewpoints have changed through seeing Pride, and has helped change the mind of many individuals in a rural community that has been against LGBTQ individuals in the past. And we hope with this talk to be able to show to you guys and motivate everyone to do more. What Tracy had mentioned is great and a good start and good stuff to do, but
I met Tracy and we've talked a few times from the area that she's in, more South Shore of Mass, and it's great to hear what we've talked about before and what you've said now. Just by our time when I met you till now, it's been 3 years, I believe, and now you have made the change just by introducing something in your area.
exactly. And we're not saying that these changes are easy or will be easy for your organization, as no changes for an organization. There are many barriers in many different ways that organizations can face. But looking at the long term and laying out plans and executing them to include transgender individuals and providing the experience that showcasing the positive experiences that we have had with Pride and making those more universal to all groups and people of all walks of life, even those who are not affiliated with the LGBTQ community or do not know an LGBTQ person. By doing this, it will have immense effects, such as the ones that me and Tyler have described. And if there is anything that either of us could do to help your organizations in any way, we are more than happy to help, as we get that these changes and potentially finding ways to be more inclusive while still maintaining your organization and not disrupting things in a way that would be harmful to your organization as a whole can be very tough. Our emails are in our profiles, and we are very much willing to talk with any of you on how you can be more trans inclusive, or if there's stuff that you have forgot, that you have not mentioned, that you'd like to in this discussion. We have about 12 minutes left. We welcome all people to talk in the chat on your experiences with trans inclusivity and or questions.
Or this is something that this is random, she doesn't know I'm going to ask, but what if your observations, what have you seen? What is anybody who, any of you folks that are here, what have you seen at Pride that shows that there's trans inclusivity? What have you seen it? I just want, have you seen anything that catches your eye, that if you're not under the transgender identity spectrum, that caught your eye enough to really want you to go there and be like, I really want to know what this pamphlet's about?
Definitely.
Do you know, have you seen it? Have you not seen it? And if you haven't, where are you? What area are you in? Are there, if you're not in an organization, are there organizations around you we can reach out to? Because that's the work that I do. I'm the one with the mouth. I'm the one that will go. That's why I'm sorry I don't talk very much, because I have a mouth. So that's, yeah. But I would like to know, is there anything that you haven't seen that we've talked about that we can try to find help in any way to get you, any of you here, guidance or support? Any of the information, I don't know if you can see I don't know if they can see all of ours in the profile. I'm not sure, but because
And going off of what Tyler was saying, by sharing that stuff, it helps us all know what's out there and come together, share resources. As Tyler had said earlier, people from all over come to Pride in the Northeast region, and sharing these resources with one another it can be immensely helpful. Say, for instance, someone from Buffalo, New York comes to Austin Pride one year, and there's information about organizations within the Northeast. It allows for them to see an organization in their area that they may know about, and it allows Boston Pride to have an impact on a positive impact on an individual, even outside of their main constituency.
You just gave me like a thought. So having that, we have a lot of conferences around the country that just pertain to trans, like the Philadelphia Transgender Conference. We have a full conference for this. When I go to that conference, I'm like, oh my God, I did not know you existed. Now think about, and that only happens once a year at one place for 3 days. How many prides do we have in the country? And
Yeah,
so think about how much more progress is if we had it involved in every pride in any way.
Definitely. And Leo, we thank you for your narrative about that powerful performance. That definitely is very powerful, as hormones can be a major point in an individual's transition should they decide to pursue medical transition. That was one of the most memorable days of my life so far, is taking that first dose. And that AFAB drag queen sharing that experience
That's amazing.
with everyone at that event is powerful and speaks volumes and showcases that the experiences of trans individuals. For instance, that performer, you can be assigned female at birth and be a drag queen.
Yes.
And that
yes.
that goes to trans who we are.
And drag is what we do.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, seriously, one of the amazing things about how having more trans people in and actually showing that you can be a trans man and be feminine, and you can be a trans woman and be masculine. You can be a trans man and be gay, and you can be a trans woman and be a lesbian. You can be a trans man and be a drag king, and you can be a trans woman and be a drag king.
Yeah, you can be non-binary and be a drag queen, non-binary and a drag king, non-binary and a drag performer. There are so many
like,
trans people can everything.
We don't just stop because we're trans. Life does not stop. And you just made me happy.
Yes. And Sherry, definitely what you said. I would even extend, Sherry, that quote that you mentioned to all individuals are in drag one way or another. The outfits we choose to put on, it's on a daily basis, it's similar, at least in my experience, to how you get ready as a drag performer. It is, how do I want to look for this particular event and thing? And what do I want to project? Which all of us here at this conference and everyone in the world does. And it showcases people's expressions and how we want to be perceived within society and how we want to express ourselves.
I feel like I know the performance that we're talking about. Was it Leo? That was Leo, right? Yeah. Sorry, I can't read this far away. I apologize. So I didn't get to see it until she read that. That I just want to say that is amazing to see out of a performance where like that to me was like my Pinocchio performance. Unfortunately, when I did my and also having, I would say that I don't know was it in support of it? Was it? I want to know if the person who performed it was a personal performance. Like, I want to know who it was. If you could give me the information of who the performer was, that would be amazing, because I would really love to see it.
And having this discussion with everyone, it has been amazing. And I again want to thank everyone for their feedback and their comments in the chat and their questions, as having this discussion is so useful for all of us, as we previously stated, because me and Tyler and I, we do not claim to be experts on everything. We, in the relative scope of the world, we each know very little, and we come together and try to know a little bit more. But the 23 of you that are here with us, it is amazing to have all of you here, and your stories and your experiences. As those coming together, it allows us to share our knowledge and our resources and come together to be more powerful, united together, not only as a Northeast Regional Pride Conference, but as an LGBTQ plus community. As, again, like we have been stating throughout this entire thing, we are only as strong as our weakest link.
We don't limit our boundaries of support. You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for explaining all of that to these wonderful people. I'm sorry, as much as I'm a performer, I get stage fright like crazy. Mike and me are like, I'm the one that trips on stage when I have to talk. I just had to add that.
So we're just about running out of time. We are going to put our emails where you can contact us if you have any further questions or want to talk about any of the topics here with either of us further. So if you give us 1 second, I will send those in the chat so you have that information.
Good. Thank you so much, Tyler and Jaclyn. That was a great conversation. And actually, that was my comment about the AFAB drag queen, and I will find out, because it was awesome. When I saw that, I actually stood up and I was like, that was so great. And then I introduced myself and I was like, you're amazing. So yeah, but we'll find that out for you. And thank you again for being here.
Yeah, so we got our next session in like 15 minutes.
Yep.
And then 4 o'clock is the plenary, and it'll be cool.
Yes.
And thank you for our interpreters, and thank you for our speakers, and thanks everybody who's here and asked questions.
Yep.
And
See you guys soon, everybody.